why you started this, what's your background, to even sometimes like artfully give yourself some credibility in that pitch becomes really critical.
Hi, welcome to Lumos Talks, the weekly show on growth marketing from the people in the field doing the work. I'm Seb Weber. I'm the ECD at Blindspot, and this is my colleague and co-founder of Blindspot, Bogdan.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, and we are super hyped today. We have Ran here. Ran, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So let's kick this off by if you could give us a little bit of background of where you are and how you got there, and we'll start moving the conversation like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am currently the head of marketing at Microsoft for Startups. And what Microsoft for Startups is we are within the Microsoft business, and we specifically focus on working with early stage startups. So that being pre-seed to Series C, and helping them build fast, scale smart, and sell more with Microsoft. And what that means is introducing them to our cloud Azure, and all the capabilities that come with building on Azure, including Azure's compliance security, given that Microsoft has been around the enterprise space for the past 50 years, kind of that enterprise grade privacy and security, as well as helping them navigate what go-to-market could look like, and how to get their first customers, which I think is certainly very top of mind for many startups, especially B2B startups these days. I've been at Microsoft for about 2 years now and have spent the majority of my career in marketing, though took an intentional pivot away for a couple of years prior to Microsoft, actually. And so from Microsoft, I came from working on digital transformation on the global side at AB InBev, which is a global beverage brand. And then prior to that, spent a little bit of time in consulting and in the tech startup space. So a kind of mix of different companies, different company sizes, different products, and different brands. But all to say, I think throughout my career, have always just been driven by two things, which is my own curiosity. And I think as a marketer, it's really important to step outside of the curiosity of just marketing to be more well-rounded and have more perspective. And the second thing being just an obsession with customer centricity, human centricity, because for me, marketing at the end of the day is about storytelling. And it's impossible to tell a good story without really knowing who you're talking to and what they care about. So that is my background in a high level nutshell.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you've moved between two very different worlds, enterprise tech to high growth startups. Can you walk us through that journey and how you ended up at Microsoft today a little bit further?
I've always been someone who's really enjoyed like getting my hands dirty, rolling up my sleeves, and learning by doing. I first was a part of the startup space. This is, I think, a bit of time has passed now, but back when I was at Twitter, I used to work on the brand side at Twitter. And when I was at Twitter, I had an incredible opportunity to go to an office outside of the US in EMEA. And that office was like incredibly scrappy at the time, because at the time, Twitter was still very much growing its presence in other regions, like Japan and US, where was two of their biggest markets, and everywhere else it's kind of Facebook / now Meta was like incredibly dominant. So going to a smaller market in EMEA, and helping them kind of build up more of the Twitter presence, especially when they're trying to sell to your Fortune 100 brands and give them the reason of why you should be partnering with Twitter, was just like, for me, so exciting. It was so scrappy. Like, I remember going to the office for the first time, and the entire office was 27 people across product engineering, marketing, brand, what have you. And it felt like I think that was my first exposure to like more of the startup environment. And it also reminded me of the privilege that I had being on the US side, to be exposed to all the resources, people, energy that I did. And I was in a remote office at Twitter. I was in the LA office. So I wasn't even in New York or the SF headquarters. And so that energy was just, yeah, made me want more. It made me want to learn how to be more scrappy, wear multiple hats, drive more adoption and awareness in a market where you might not be like known even. And so at that time, it so happened that some ex Twitter founders left Twitter to start this company called Attentive. And I think a lot of marketers now know about Attentive, but at the time they were incredibly new, had just gotten their just gotten their Series A, and were one of the first players in the SMS text. SMS marketing, B2B marketing space. And so I joined as one of their first marketing hires. And it was like, a really humbling experience to go from a brand like Twitter to a brand that nobody had heard of before.
Yeah.
I remember like Twitter, I mentioned even like in EMEA, you go knocking and like at least somebody responds, maybe
Yeah.
they're skeptical of how many dollars they're going to give you, but like at least they respond because like you're cool. They know who you are. And those early days at Attentive, and by the way, it's like so incredible to see how far Attentive has come. But those early days at Attentive, I remember we were kind of just trying to get as many customers as possible, launched an account-based marketing strategy. How do we do personalization at scale? How do we figure out the right events to be at, the right people to reach out to? And I remember we had gotten some of our first customers, and there was this like very vivid memory in my first month there in which we had gotten this big brand to come on to like a pilot with us. It was a free pilot, and for a startup, like that's everything in terms of your customer exposure and like being able to tag a logo on your site or in your ABM materials or like at an event, like signage, And so I remember going to this, like reaching out to this big brand and saying like, "Hey, like I'm with Attentive. You guys have just started like piloting our product. We would love if we can come to one of your stores and maybe put a little QR code to like opt into the SMS text messaging for 10% off to your customers, right? Because these were D2C,
Right.
mostly retail, but like in this case, physical retail as well, brand. And I just remember the reaction was like, who are you? Like, what are you doing here? And like, it was just so, yeah, it was certainly a new experience for me having come from such a known and loved brand like Twitter. And so that's also, I think, for me, what I carry with me and everything I do in the digital innovation and startup space. And now at Microsoft for startups that I work with startups on the other side, I remember how hard it was from a brand awareness visibility space in those early days. So at Microsoft, it's really important for me as a marketer to leverage Microsoft's platform to lift up the startups that we work with. But that's kind of like a tidbit in terms of my mentality and like the energy behind the startup space and the opportunity. Because of course, like for those that have followed Attentive's journey, scaled so much and like now they're in so many different regions. A lot of e-commerce businesses leverage Attentive as their SMS solution. I know even from what I understand of them today, they've like evolved the business to be beyond only SMS marketing. But the startup's energy has always like carried through with me in my career in terms of being agile, being scrappy, like remembering that as a marketer you're kind of starting from nothing, so therefore the storytelling component is really important. Connecting into what your customers care about is really important. And so that's then what led me to BCG, where I did that at scale, and then ultimately AB InBev from BCG, where I was on the other side, like advising some of our leadership in terms of how to think more about product market fit, about product led growth versus business led growth. And then kind of the rest is history in terms of like how that's continued from InBev to Microsoft is. Um, and I think at the core of all this, again, is customer centricity, like really understanding whether your customer is the marketer in the case of a B2B startup, or
Hmm.
whether your customer is like the end user or the shopper in the case of like AB and Bev, for example. It's really important to kind of like speak the language of your like whoever that target audience is, and like come up with marketing activations that resonate with them. Yeah.
And I think it takes a certain type of personality as well to do what you described. I kind of bucket people into two kind of categories: people that really like and innovate on structure, and then people that really survive in chaos. And those are the ones that
Mhm.
I find that just work really well in startups. You have to be really comfortable in the
Yeah.
unknown, right? Because you have to have a gang of ideas that might not work. You have to live in a certain amount of uncertainty, and you have to be kind
Mhm.
of a little bit crazy to want to survive and thrive in that, right? There's two sides with
Yeah.
this: surviving, but there's also thriving. Me and Bogdan talk about this pretty frequently, but it's like hiring people from big established companies not isn't necessarily a great thing, because a lot of the time they may have
Yeah.
forgotten how to hustle, right? They
And
you
it's a
can
big
get
culture change.
you can
Yeah.
hide in
Mhm.
big companies. You can do your job well, but you can also kind of hide. And I think that
Yeah.
yeah, the rock stars are
100%.
the ones that can apply themselves into the new, treat the startup the same as Twitter. And quite frankly, not a lot of people can do that. That is a rare superpower.
What's interesting for me about coming, like, because to take a step back, I went from the startup to BCG, which is Boston Consulting Company. So a bit of a pivot on my end. Like I went from a startup to consulting, but specifically what's been consistent from my career since the startup is I've always worked in startup-esque arms
Mm,
of enterprise companies.
right.
So from BCG or at BCG, I was on Digital Ventures, which was their like digital innovation arm
Yeah.
where they helped your Fortune like 100s launch startups and incubate different ideas within them. And then from BCG, I went to InBev in their digital transformation arm where they were trying to, a retail company who's like excellent and best in class at operations,
Hmm.
trying to disrupt direct to consumer, which is a
Hmm.
whole new world, especially for those that are familiar with the bev industry, the three-tier alcohol system. D2C is not easy
No,
in that industry. And then they're Microsoft, but within Microsoft, startups, which is not Microsoft's like
not Microsoft.
historical
Microsoft. Yeah.
what Microsoft has been known for in terms of their
Yeah.
main primary audience. Because for the past 50 years they've been serving these large enterprise customers, and I think um, throughout all this, what I've carried with me from the startup days is the scrappiness. Like what we all know in working with a startup is you have to wear multiple hats, and then you have to understand how to take very little but make a lot out of it. And that's kind of consistent in what I've seen in all the different like groups that I've worked, innovation groups that I've worked in within enterprises. The budget is not always as big as like the large at the large enterprise level, because we're still like grow it's a growth investment, right? So how, like for me then as a marketer on this side, like how can we and also by the way, because right now I work with startups, it is more about down to earth marketing versus your big like whatever Super Bowl activations, right? So
Right.
how can we be scrappy with our organic content? How can we leverage AI um, to our advantage? And at Microsoft, we are privileged to have access to like Copilot and all that comes with Copilot, and being able to like build agents is something that I'm talking with my team about. And so, like, how can we as marketers learn to be a little bit scrappier and not rely on all the big budgets to reach our audience at the end of the day? I think is something that we like is has been helpful for me, and that we all need to think about like today, given that we don't know where, or at least I don't know where the future of this industry or of marketing is going. I know that there's a lot of goodness there, but certainly it will be evolving. It is evolving and changing given the AI landscape, right? Yeah. So scrappiness and critical thinking becomes essential.
Yeah.
So, since we're talking about AI founders and founders overall, when a founder comes to you and says, "We don't know how to talk about what we do," where do you start? I mean, I know I had that problem. If I go
Yeah.
back in time and reassess how many variations of our pitch deck, whether investor deck or commercial deck or
Mhm.
any kind of deck,
Yeah.
and I think I did that a while back. I think we have thousands. So where do you start in
Yeah.
working with the founders to polish
Yeah.
that topic?
Well, first of all, I think that back to like what I was mentioning before in terms of customer centricity, human centricity, it's important to know who you're talking to, because even bogged into all the different like audiences that you've just mentioned, like talking to a VC, you might not have like the same key point that you want to get across versus if you were talking to a potential customer. Versus, if you were talking to just a general startups ecosystem like player, right? And so specifically, I'll talk about as it relates to the go to market space. So, a potential customer, the biggest area of opportunity that I've noticed a lot of startups should invest more time thinking about is what is their very quick, easy to comprehend way of talking about what their solution is to a potential customer. One of the things that Microsoft for Startups offers a segment of our startups who have achieved product market fit and are go to market ready is we place them in opportunities in which we bring potential customers and give them the opportunity to kind of get in front of these customers and talk about their product. And oftentimes, as I've like kind of been the one to be a part of like the connecting point of these two worlds, I see that the startups are kind of going too in depth into like very niche language in their industry, which is great if you, especially if you're talking to an expert on the CXO side. But if you've not landed the high level, so what, before going into that detail, then you've completely lost the person. So I
Yeah.
think the end takeaway is it's not about you, it's about the other person, right? It's
Hmm.
about the customer. So what does that customer care about? And that's what you lead with in like your, in my opinion, no more than 8 minute spiel to lead with in terms of like what's the so what of the product that I'm trying to build. Um, what problem did I notice that I'm solving for? I think adding that little personal touch, if especially if it's a founder, um, like why you started this, what's your background, to even sometimes like artfully give yourself some credibility in that pitch becomes really critical. And letting the questions guide the conversation towards more detail versus putting it all out there all at once, and then leaving the potential customer with kind of like a lot to digest all at the same time. I think that that is the biggest area of opportunity that more startups should invest time in and continue to get feedback.
Mm.
And refining, because that's what then unlocks doors to additional questions, follow-up conversations. So there's that, and then linked to that, having a solid story somewhere that you can reference somebody to digitally, whether it's a LinkedIn or whether it's case studies on your website or a really clean video demo on your website that somebody can go through and be intrigued enough to ask for a follow-up. Those are all things that I think are foundationally really important in the early days of how to talk about yourself as an early stage startup.
I think that leads us on to our next side of the show, which is operator insight. And I would love to know how you evaluate like growth opportunity today. Like, what is your mental model? Like, how do you know when something is worth betting on internally? Like, what are the feelings? What are the things you discuss the team to greenlight something? What tell us about that?
Yeah, this is like such a complex and big question, right? But because there are so many different factors, and at the Microsoft for Startup side, we take a variety of different routes here. For us, the most important part in the beginning is certainly to expose the startups to the different tools that they have access to with Microsoft to get them to start building. And then after and then there are different like ecosystem players that we partner with. For example, if they are funded through one or more of investors. And investors to us means anybody that invests time, money, resources in a startup. So that could be an accelerator, a VC, a university. If they are affiliated with an investor in our investor network, then we tend to also, offer them additional benefits like a one-on-one technical support or additional credits to kind of give them a little bit of a push, because we know that there's conviction that one of our partners like also see something in them, so we also want to kind of help lift them up along their journey. So that's one factor. But I think like some more like some additional levers is the founder, what's the founder background, right? Have they are they an industry expert and have spent the X amount of years of the majority of their career working in retail, and they know retail in and out, and so they've decided to leave the industry to go found a solution that they as an executive have always wanted. I think that's like usually signs of someone who's probably going to go on to build like a product that resonates with them as well as like their peers in the industry. for us, repeat, it's a very similar approach to VCs as well. Like a repeat founder is another area we look after. We know that this founder kind of has understands how to build, scale, and sell their product. So that then connects into our go-to-market motions, in which we would offer the founder, additional go-to-market resources and opportunities to get them in front of potential customers. But like I said, for us, it all starts with just the interest in building with Microsoft and exploring Azure, because for us, like they're shipping new products left and right every single day. And for building on Azure and Azure OpenAI, we are model agnostic. So when you build on Azure, you also get access to like the latest in Claude and the latest on the latest models on the OpenAI side. So we monitor very um, carefully the startups that do build with us and look at the data in terms of like what they're building. And then if we see momentum, we want to be a part of like helping them in that
Right.
journey to gain additional momentum. And so these are kind of some of the components that we look after. And of course, there's more organic things like the founder story. As I mentioned before, is why I think it's an art to weave that into your narrative, if possible, in some way, shape, or form. Like, why is the founder so passionate about this space? What led them to found this product? What's their vision for how this product is going to scale? Those are all, it's kind of, like I said, it's a big answer. It's a complicated answer. And there's no
Yeah.
like one specific formula or secret sauce in it. Yeah. I wish I had a more clear answer. Mhm.
So, I have a question. In your opinion, what are the most common mistakes that you see marketers make when they're working inside or alongside big tech?
Um, I think one of the biggest common mistakes that a marketer, or like missed opportunity, I think is a
Mm,
better way that I would approach the thinking in this, that a marketer working in big tech has, is sticking too heavily to their niche. Like, for example, because I think in a big tech, there tends to be a lot of different teams, some of which are doing the same thing, some of which are like very focused on one specific thing. But I err on the side of being a more like, there's two different paths, generally speaking, I think, that a marketer can take. You can take the expert track, you take the generalist track. I am a
yeah.
generalist marketer. And the reason why I've liked this is because I've like been in the startup space, been able to dabble like in a lot of different types of marketing. Like, I might not be an expert here, but I know enough to
Yeah.
be a little dangerous and connect the dots. And so I think the biggest area of opportunity for a marketer working in big tech, even if you do go the expert track, is to occasionally at least like lift your head up and see what else is going on. And if possible, expose yourself to things outside of just your world of product marketing, for example. Like, also understand what's going on the brand side, because the direction that I think marketing is going is one that these different areas of marketing are all connected together way more than ever before.
Hmm.
Like, how you tell a product marketing story naturally has to connect into brand. And if there's disconnectivity, like that shows up in the larger presence of like how the product and brand show up. So I think it's good you don't need to be the expert, but be well versed enough in some other worlds adjacent to yours to be truly, I think, a good leader as well as an effective marketer.
Mm, that was great. That was brilliant. All right, we're at the rapid fire takeaways part of the show. Simple one word answers. You do not over need to think this bit. We're going to hit you with the questions. Just hit us back with your first thoughts. So I'm first up. One channel that you would double down on today.
This is, I don't know, necessarily considered a channel yet. I don't know what this would be called, but AI search, AEO and GEO.
GEO, yeah. Great.
One metric that actually matters.
Conversion.
Mm, amen.
Yeah.
One growth
Yeah.
myth you strongly disagree with.
That awareness or brand doesn't matter as it relates to business growth or like attribution in general, because it tends to be the hardest to attribute. I know I'm only supposed to be giving one word answer, so yeah.
No, uh, that was a perfect answer because we're totally aligned with that point of
Totally
view.
aligned there.
Yeah.
One piece of advice for marketers listening.
Experiment with AI, and like try to think about what is missing in your day to day or what you can optimize and try to use AI to make it easier for you because I think AI is here to stay, but I do think we didn't talk about this myth, but I don't think AI is going to replace marketing, but I certainly know that it will change marketing. And those that are well versed in enough in how to leverage AI to their advantage will be able to work smarter and more creatively.
That was amazing. Rand, thank you for spending some time with us today. This has been super insightful. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. This is fun.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back. A little closing note on my side. Hey, if you've been listening to this podcast and you enjoy it, please share it with people in your team. And a big shout out and thank to our title sponsor and partner, cblindspot.com. And thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Ren.
Thank you.